Hey guys, this is Miss Bridget from Pig Fair. This is going to be part 2 of Fablehaven. Real quick, let's do a recap of what we read in part 1. So in part 1, we read that our main characters, Kendra and Seth, they are brother and sister, and they're on their way to their mysterious grandparents' house, and they have found out that their grandparents don't really want them there for some reason. And the reason why they're going to their grandparents' house is because their parents are going on to this cruise with their entire family except the grandkids, because they have found out that their grandparents on their mother's side have just died. So their family's going on a cruise while Kendra and Seth are going to their father's parents or their grandparents on their dad's side to stay with them while their parents are on a cruise in Scandinavia. So that's where we left off. Let's get started with 5 more minutes of Fablehaven. Grandpa Sorensen sighed. I suppose we could find a place to lock them up. Kendra moved away from the hall at that point. She had quietly worried about staying with Grandpa Sorensen ever since. Having left the town behind, the SUV climbed a steep grade. Then the road curved around a lake and got lost among low forested hills. Every so often they passed a mailbox. Sometimes a house was visible through the trees. Sometimes there was only a long driveway. They turned onto a narrower road and kept driving. Kendra leaned forward and checked the gas gauge. Dad, you're under a quarter of a tank, she said. We're almost there. We'll fill up after we drop you kids off. Can't we come on the cruise? Seth asked. We could hide in the lifeboats. You could sneak us food. You kids will have much more fun with Grandma and Grandpa Sorensen, Mom said. Just you wait. Give it a chance. Here we are, Dad said. They pulled off the road onto a gravel driveway. Kendra could see no sign of a house, only the driveway angling out of sight into the trees. Tires crunching over the gravel, they passed several signs advertising that they were on private property. Other signs warded off trespassers. They came to a low metal gate that hung open but could be shut to prevent access. This is the longest driveway in the world, Seth complained. The farther they advanced, the less conventional the signs became. Private property and no trespassing gave way to beware of 12-point gauge and trespassers. Will be persecuted. These signs are funny, Seth said. More like creepy, Kendra muttered. Rounding another bend, the driveway reached a tall wrought iron fence, topped with fleur-de-lis. The double gate stood open. The fence extended off into the trees as far as Kendra could see in either direction. Near the fence stood a final sign. Certain death awaits. Is Grandpa Sorensen paranoid? Kendra asked. The signs are a joke, Dad said. He inherited this land. I'm sure the fence came with it. After they passed through the gate, there was still no house in sight, just more trees and shrubs. They drove across a small bridge spanning a creek and climbed a shallow slope. There the trees ended abruptly, bringing the house into view across a vast front lawn. The house was big, but enormous, with lots of gables and even a turret. After the wrought iron gate, Kendra had expected a castle or mansion. Constructed out of dark wood and stone, the house looked old but in good repair. The grounds were more impressive. A bright flower garden bloomed in front of the house. Manicured hedges and a fish pond added character to the yard. Behind the house loomed an immense brown barn, at least 5 stories tall, topped by a weather vane. I love it, Mom said. I wish we were all staying. You've never been here? Kendra asked. No, your father came here a couple of times before we were married. They go the extra mile to discourage visitors, Dad said. Me, Uncle Carl, Aunt Sophie, none of us have spent much time here. I don't get it. You kids are lucky. You'll have a blast. If nothing else, you can spend your time playing in the pool. They pulled to a stop outside the garage. The front door opened and Grandpa Sorensen emerged, followed by a tall, lanky man with large ears and a thin, older woman. Mom, Dad, and Seth got out of the car. Kendra sat and watched. Grandpa had been clean-shaven at the funeral, but now he wore a stubbly white beard. He was dressed in faded jeans, work boots, and a flannel shirt. Kendra studied the older woman. She was not Grandma Sorensen. Despite her white hair streaked with a few black strands, her face had an ageless quality. Her almond eyes were black as coffee. and her features suggested a hint of Asian ancestry. Short and slightly stooped, she retained an exotic beauty. Dad and the lanky man opened the back of the SUV and began removing suitcases and duffel bags. "You coming, Kendra?" Dad asked. Kendra opened the door and dropped to the gravel. "Just place the things inside," Grandpa was telling Dad. "Dale will take them up to the bedroom." "Where's Mom?" Dad asked. "Visiting your Aunt Edna." "In Missouri?" "Edna's dying." Kendra barely ever heard of Aunt Edna, so the news did not mean much. She looked up at the house. She noticed that the windows had bubbly glass. Bird nests clung under the eaves. They all migrated to the front door. Dad and Dale carried the larger bags. Excuse me. Seth held a smaller duffel bag and a cereal box. The cereal box was his emergency kit. It was full of odds and ends he thought would come in handy for an adventure. Rubber bands, a compass, granola bars, coins, a squirt gun, magnifying glass, plastic handcuffs, string, and a whistle. "This is Lena, our housekeeper," Grandpa said. The older woman nodded and gave a little wave. "Dale helps me tend the grounds." "Aren't you pretty?" Lena said to Kendra. "You must be around 14. Lena had a faint accent that Kendra could not place. "In October." An iron knocker hung on the front door, a squinting goblin with a ring in its mouth. The thick door had bulky hinges, and Kendra entered the house. So that concludes part 2. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.